Morning, dear students. Now we see Standard 9th Science, Unit 23, Economic Biology. The gift of nature is almost ultimate, and thus a variety of useful products are obtained from plants. Economic uses of plants are varied, and therefore the scope for improvement and their cultivation is immense. Floriculture and horticulture have gained considerable public attraction. In recent scenario, more emphasis is given to the progress of economic aspects of zoology like aquaculture, vermiculture, apiculture, and dairy farming, which are gaining more importance as animal-based farming due to the economic and commercial values. We will study in this lesson. We will study about this elaborately. Now we know about the horticulture. Horticulture is a branch of agriculture that deals with the cultivation of fruits, vegetables, and ornamental plants. Horticulture is both science and an art of growing plants with improved growth, quality, yield, and with resistance to diseases, insects, stress. There are four main classes of horticulture that are pomology, that is fruit farming, olericulture, that is vegetable farming, floriculture, flower farming, landscape gardening. Now we know about the pomology or fruit farming. Pomology deals with the development, enhancement of fruit quality, cultivation techniques, regulation of production periods, and reduction of production cost of fruits. Next farming is the olericulture or vegetable farming. Olericulture is the science of growing vegetables. Vegetable farming can be classified into three types, that are kitchen or nutrition gardening, commercial gardening, vegetable foraging. The first one is the kitchen gardening. Kitchen gardening is growing of vegetables in small scale at household. For example, beans, cabbage, lady's finger, tomato, brinjal, carrot and spinach. Next one is the commercial gardening. Commercial gardening is the production of vegetables in large scale to be sold in markets. And the last type is vegetable foraging. Vegetable foraging is the most intensive type of vegetable growing. Cabbage, tomato, brinjal are some of the example for vegetable foraging. It is the method of growing vegetables in buildings, greenhouses, cold farms, or under other artificial growing conditions. It is the most intensive type of vegetable growing. Example, cabbage, tomato, brinjal. Greenhouse or polyculture. Greenhouse is a frame structure covered with transparent material to grow crops under partially or fully controlled environmental conditions to get optimum growth and productivity. It is the fastest growing sector in the agriculture worldwide. Now we know the advantages of the greenhouse. Disease-free plants can be produced continuously. Water requirement of crops is very less. Yield is very high compared to outdoor cultivation. Limited pesticide is needed. It protects plants from uncertain weather. Now we know about the floriculture or flower farming. Floriculture is the art of cultivation, flowering, and ornamental plants in garden for beauty or floristry. It is concerned with the growing traditional flowers, cut flowers, bedding plants, foliage potted plants, arboriculture trees, turf grass for beautification, and value added products like essential oils, pharmaceuticals, and nutritious compounds. Now we know about the uses of flowers. Flowers are used for decoration purpose. They are also used for personal needs and religious and ceremonial offerings. They impart color and beauty to the garden. They increase countries' economy. Now we learn about the landscape gardening. Landscape horticulture is the study of designing and constructing landscapes in homes, business firms, and public areas to imitate natural scenery. Manuring. Organic manures are predominantly derived from plant debris, animal feces, and microbes. They make the soil fertile by adding nutrients like nitrogen. Few of them are listed here that are animal manure. It consists of figures of urine from livestock like cattle, horse, pig, sheep, chickens, turkeys, rabbits. Manures from different animals have different qualities and different applications. We know about the compost. Compost is a soil conditioner as well as a fertilizer that is rich in nutrients. It is produced by natural decomposition of organic matter such as crop residues, animal waste, food waste, industrial and municipal waste by microorganisms under controlled conditions. Now we will learn about the green manure. Green manure is obtained by collection and decomposition of green leaves, twigs of trees, field buds. Green manure improves soil structure, increases water holding capacity, and decreases soil loss by erosion. It also helps in reclamation of alkaline soil and reduces weed proliferation. It is a manure obtained from undecomposed green material derived from leguminous plants. Biofertilizers. Biofertilizers are substances that contain living microorganisms which, when applied to seeds, plant surfaces, or soil, colonize the rhizosphere or the interior of the plant and promote growth by increasing the supply or the availability of primary nutrients to the host plants. You know the types of biofertilizers. First one is the rhizobium. Rhizobium is a soil bacterium that colonizes the roots of leguminous plants to form root nodules. The bacteria fix atmospheric nitrogen and convert them to ammonia. Azospirillum. Azospirillum bacteria has the ability to use atmospheric nitrogen and transport this nutrient to the croplands. It is inoculated on maize, barley, oats, and crops. It increases productivity of the cereals by 5 to 20 percentage, of millets by 30 percentage, of fodder by over 50 percentage. Next one is the Acidobacter. Application of Acidobacter bacteria has been found to increase yield of wheat, rice, maize, and sorghum. Apart from the nitrogen fixation, these organisms are capable of producing antifungal and antibacterial compounds. Next one is the mycorrhizae. These fungi have symbiotic association with the roots of vascular plants. They increase the uptake of phosphorus. For example, citrus papaya. The last fertilizer is the azolla. Azolla is a free-floating aquatic fern found on water surfaces having a cyanobacterial symbiotic association with anabina. It is a live floating nitrogen factory using energy from photosynthesis to fix atmospheric nitrogen. Now we will know about the medicinal plants. The history of medicinal plants is as old as the history of human beings. Most medicines are obtained either directly or indirectly from plants. All the major system of medicines such as Ayurveda, Yoga, Unani, Siddha, Homeopathy are drugs obtained from plants and animals. These drugs from medicinal plants are called secondary metabolites. Now we know the drugs derived from the medicinal plants. Example, Catrolai. First one is the Catrolai. The botanical name is aloe vera. The drug is anthraquinones. Leaves are used and the disease cured are healons, skin diseases, cancer, psoriasis. Tulasi. The botanical name is Oxymum sanctum. Essential oil is the drug. Leaves are used and it cures cold, fever, skin diseases. Next one is the Nannari. Hemendesmus indicus. Terpene is used as a drug. Roots are used. Bacterial infections and diarrhea are cured by this nannari. The next one is Nilavembu. Andrographis paniculata. The drug is terpenoids. All parts of the Nilavembu is used to cure dengue fever, diabetes, chikungunya. Next one is Cinchona marum. Cinchona officinalis. Quinine drug is subtile. And the parts or bark is used as and it cures malaria and pneumonia. Chaiva namal podi. That is Wolfia serpentina. Reserpine is a drug and the roots are used to cure blood pressure, antidote for snake bite. Next one, papali. Botanical name is Carica papaya and the drug is papine. And the pods or leaf and seeds are used there and cure dengue. And the last one is Nithya Kalyani. Cadaranthus roseus. Alkaloids are derived from this plant and all the parts of the Nithya Kalyani is used to cure the leukemia and cancer. Now we know about the mushroom cultivation. Mushroom cultivation is the technology of growing mushrooms using plant, animal and industrial waste. In short, it is out of waste technology. This technology has gained importance worldwide because of its dietary fibers and protein value. Now we know the major strategies of mushroom cultivation. The first one is the composting. Compost is prepared by mixing paddy straw with a number of organic materials like cow dung and inorganic fertilizers. It is kept at about 50 degrees Celsius for 1 week. Next one is the spanning. Span is the mushroom seed. It is prepared by growing fungal mycelium in grains under the sterile conditions. Span is grown on compost. And the next stage is casing. Compost is covered with a thin layer of soil. It gives support to the growing mushroom, provides humidity and help regulate the temperature. Next stage is spinning. Mycelium starts to form little bud which will develop into mushroom. Those little white buds are called pins. Harvesting. Mushroom grow better in 15 to 23 degrees Celsius. They grow 3 centimeters in a week, which is a normal size for harvesting. In the third week, the first flesh mushroom can be harvested. Preservation, discoloration, weight, and flavor loss are the main problems during the harvesting of mushroom. The following methods are used to increase their life: freezing, drying, canning, vacuum cooling, gamma radiation, and storing at 15 degrees Celsius. Hydroponics. Hydroponics is the method of growing plants without soil using mineral nutrient solutions in water. Now we know the importance of hydroponics. Conservation of water and nutrients, control plant growth. In deserts and Arctic regions, hydroponics can be an effective alternative method. Next type is aquaponics. Aquaponics is a system of combination of conventional aquaculture with hydroponics in a symbiotic environment in which plants are fed with the aquatic animals, excreta and waste. Aeroponics. The aeroponic system is the high-tech type of hydroponic gardening. The growth medium in this type is primarily air. The roots hang in the air and are mixed with nutrient solution. Dairy farming. Dairy farming involves raising of cattle for milk production. It involves the proper maintenance of cattle along with collection and processing of milk and milk products which are useful to man. Dairying is the production of marketing of milk and its products. Cattle breeds. Cattle breeds were classified into three types that are dairy breeds, draught or draft breeds, dual purposes. First one is the dairy breeds. Dairy animals are domesticated for obtaining milk. The cows, milk producing females are high milk yielders. Draught breeds. They are used for agricultural work such as tilling, irrigation, and carting. These include Amrit Mahal, Kangayam, Ambalachari, Malvi, Sri, and Halikar breeds. Next one is the dual purpose breeds. The cows of these breeds provide milk and the bull are useful for farm work. Composition of cattle feeds. The food requirement for cattle should support healthy life of the animal and milk producing environment requirement. The feed for dairy cattle is broadly classified into roughage and concentrates. First one is the roughage. Roughage is a coarse and a fibrous fodder. It consists of succulent feed and a dry fodder. Next one is the concentrate or low fiber and contain high level of carbohydrate, protein and other nutrients. A variety of raw materials such as cholam, kambu, ragi, rice bran, wheat bran, cottonseed cake, mustard cake, linseed cake, groundnut cake, mango seed, neem cake and yellow cake can be used to make concentrate feed. They should also be fed on green fodder. Aquaculture. Aquaculture is the rearing of economically important aquatic organisms like fishes, prawns, shrimps, crabs, lobsters, edible oysters, pure oysters, and seaweeds under control and confined environmental conditions using advanced technologies. Now we know the types of aquaculture. Aquaculture is classified into two types. One is freshwater aquaculture and another one is marine water aquaculture. First one is the freshwater aquaculture. The rearing of aquatic organisms in freshwater is called freshwater aquaculture. Culture of organisms is carried out in pond, river, dam, lake and groundwater. Marine water culture, the cultivation of aquatic organisms in sea water. This is also referred as mariculture or sea farming. Culture of organisms is carried out along the sea coast and in deep sea. Next one is the pisciculture. Pisciculture or fish culture is the process of breeding and rearing of fish in ponds, reservoirs, lakes, rivers and paddy fields. It is the farming of economically important fishes under controlled conditions. Types of fish culture. Extensive fish culture. Culture of fishes in large areas with a low stocking density and natural feeding. Next one is the intensive fish culture. Culture of fishes in small areas with a high stocking density and providing artificial feed to increase production. Next one is the monoculture. It is the culture of single type of fish in a water body. It is also called monospecies culture. Polyculture. It is the culture of more than one type of fish in a water body. It is also called composite fish culture. And the next one is the integrated fish farming. It is the culture of fishes among with agricultural crops and or animal husbandry farming. Now we know the types of ponds for fish culture. Fish farm requires different types of ponds for various developmental stages of fish growth. They are given below, that are breeding pond, hatching pond, nursery pond, rearing pond and stocking pond. Nutritional value of fishes. Cultivable freshwater and marine food fish. Fishes are highly nutritious, rich source of animal proteins and are easily digestible. They are rich in essential amino acids such as lysine and methionine, polysaturated fatty acids, minerals like calcium, phosphorus, iron, sodium, potassium and magnesium. Fat soluble vitamins A, D and water soluble B complex vitamins like pyridoxine, cyanobalamin and niacin. Prawn culture. One of the most economically important shellfish resources in India is the prawns. They are the great demand both in the local and international markets. Now we know the types of prawn culture. A number of species of prawns or different sizes are found distributed in water resources. Only those prawns which are good in size, weight, available in plenty, and easily cultivable are commonly selected for prawn culture on commercial basis. Marine prawn culture. The rearing of marine pinnate prawn is called marine prawn culture or shrimp culture. Penaeus indicus and Penaeus monodon are cultured in marine water. Freshwater prawn culture. The rearing of freshwater prawn is called freshwater prawn culture. Macrobrachium rosenbergi and Macrobacterium malcolmsoni are cultured in freshwater. Methods of prawn culture. The methods employed for prawn culture are seed collection or hatchery method. Paddy cum prawn culture. First one is the seed collection and a hatchery method. The larvae and juveniles obtained by collection from natural resources or by hatchery methods. They are reared and grown into adults. Paddy cum prawn culture. It is also called vocally culture. It is the oldest and traditional method of prawn culture practiced in Kerala. The low-lying paddy fields along the coastal areas serve as suitable grounds for prawn culture. Prawns are cultured in these fields after the harvest of paddy. Vermi technology. To produce good quality crops, maintenance of the soil organic matter is very important for sustainable productivity, and this is attained by vermi technology. Vermiculture involves the artificial rearing of cultivation of earthworms and using them for production of compost from natural organic waste. Vermicomposting. It is the important component of organic farming which can convert bio-waste into nutrient-rich organic manure by using earthworms. It feeds on the organic waste and excrete it in digested form known as castings. The compost is generally called vermicompost. Vermicompost materials. Biologically degradable organic waste are used as potential organic resources for vermicomposting. They are agricultural waste, crop residues, leaf litter, fruit and vegetable waste, animal waste, and biogas slurry. Advantages of vermicompost. Vermicompost is drawn dark brown in color and similar to farmyard manure in color and appearance. It is a rich source of nutrients essential for plant growth. It makes the soil fertile. It improves the water holding capacity and helps to prevent soil erosion. It contains valuable vitamins, enzymes, and growth regulator substances for increasing growth, vigor, and yield of plants. It enhances decomposition of organic matter in soil. Vermicompost is free from pathogens and toxic elements. Vermicompost is rich in beneficial microflora. Apiculture. Apiculture is the rearing of honeybee for honey. It is also called beekeeping. It is a profitable rural-based industry. Honeybees are domestically by farmers to produce honey. Now we see the types of honeybees. There are three types of individuals in the honeybee colony, that are queen bee, drones, and the worker bees. Various varieties of honeybees. The indigenous varieties are Apis dorsata, Apis florea, Apis indica. Exotic varieties are Apis mellifera and Apis adamsoni. Now we know the structure of bee comb. The comb of the bees is formed mainly by the secretion of wax glands present in the abdomen of the worker bee. A comb is a vertical sheet of wax with a double layer of hexagonal cells. Now we know the formation of honey. The honeybees suck the nectar from the various flowers. The nectar passes to the honey sac. In the honey sac, sucrose present in the nectar mixes with the acidic secretion, and by enzymatic action, it is converted into honey, which is stored in a special chambers of the hive Quality of honey depends upon the flowers available in to the bees for nectar and pollen collection. Now we know the products from honey. Honey bees are used in the production of honey and bee wax. Other useful products obtained from honey bees are bee pollen, royal jelly, propolis, and bee venom. Uses of honey. Honey has an antiseptic and antibacterial property. It is a blood purifier. It helps in building up of the hemoglobin content in the blood. It is used in Ayurvedic and Unani systems of medicines. It prevents cough, cold, fever, and relieves sore throat. It is a remedy for ulcers of tongue, stomach, and intestine. It enhances the digestion and appetite. Thank you, students.